Welcome to Aretuza Journals, Chapter 11. Today, we're going to look into the most important aspect of Gwent, tempo. Tempo is a concept that's well established in just about any card game that has resources, that being just about every trading or collectible card game. It is normally used to describe our momentum in a match, and it's a sum total of our board state, life total, and our mana management. Tempo in Gwent is rather unique in several ways because there's no mana management, there are no life totals, and there are no alternative win conditions. We have discussed our resources in the previous issue of our series, and tempo in Gwent is directly connected to them. It can refer to one of two things. The first is tempo position, that is board state relative to our available resources, those being our hand, rounds, and value, and the second is a tempo swing, the impact of our play relative to the board position. What that leads to is the fourth unique aspect of tempo in Gwent. Tempo does not exist in round 3. So why is it so important and how do we manage it properly? Tempo is interconnected with value and card advantage. In other words, plays that give a significant tempo advantage over our opponent, leading to either a pass on the same card count or even a single card down, will through proper tempo management and sufficient bleeding in round 2, secure a 1-2 card advantage in round 3. To be able to understand this correlation of resources, we will refer to a diagram called Tempo Pendulum that illustrates it rather well. At the start of the game, the pendulum rests in a neutral position with neither of the players having the advantage. The only way to gain the advantage before the game starts as of now are Elven War Dancers that get placed on the board if they're mulliganed away during the Mulligan Phase. The first player to swing the pendulum effectively trades one card in hand for X amount of tempo, X being the amount of value set play provided. We call this action a tempo swing. The opponent will now get his chance to push the pendulum back. It's generally the goal of this player to swing the pendulum back past the point of neutrality, to essentially force the opponent to play another card before passing. As we've established earlier, the player who goes second can play a lot more reserved, as he can play an additional card and still secure his card advantage going into round 3. The maximum swing value one player can achieve in a single turn is what we call reach. It's a fairly important concept, especially in round 1, as it's the goal of the player who went first to create a significant enough momentum it surpasses the opponent's reach, and the goal of the opponent to prevent that. In addition to the positive tempo swings, that is plays that increase your tempo advantage or close the gap between you and your opponent, we also know null and negative ones. A null swing is one that doesn't move the pendulum in any way. A nice example of such play would be Gwent, which essentially trades our swing to increase those in the future. Negative tempo swings are plays that actually swing the pendulum in favor of your opponent. Spies are the best examples of them and are most commonly used to trade tempo for card advantage. We will discuss their use and importance in one of the future chapters of this series. The ideal scenario for a player to pass is when he has both card advantage and his tempo advantage is bigger than his opponent's reach. That way we secure either a round win or sufficient card advantage to roll over our opponent in rounds 2 and 3. It's often efficient to pass in scenarios where our opponent needs at least 2 more cards to secure the victory even if we're on even cards. As we've mentioned before, once we reach round 3, tempo as a resource disappears. That is due to the fact momentum in round 1 and 2 is created by our ability to pass and cash in our round loss. The only resources that matter from that point on are value and consequently card advantage. Proper tempo management is something that requires a lot of game knowledge and familiarity with the specific meta we're dealing with. The appropriate estimation of the opponent's reach is as essential to it as mastery of our own deck. It takes practice, experience, and it's one of the main reasons why players with a lot of man hours put into the game would generally come out on top. That brings us to the end of Chapter 11 of the Aretuza Journals. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.